Welcome to my Expat stories. This one's about a man who spent 32 years investigating fraud for a living. He knew every trick, every lie, every pattern that separated truth from deception. He'd seen it all. Then he went to Colombia. Walter, 67, retired insurance adjuster from Sacramento, California. His wife died of cancer in 2021. He went to Cartagena looking for peace, maybe companionship. He found Natalie. She never asked for money. She introduced him to her family, her mother, her sister, her 2 kids. Made him feel like maybe he could have a second chapter. If you want daily Colombia cautionary tales instead of every other day, hit subscribe and help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Here's Walter. I spent 32 years investigating insurance fraud. Started as a claims adjuster in 1989. Worked my way up to senior fraud investigator by 2005. Auto claims mostly. Staged accidents. Fake injuries. Inflated damages. You name it. I'd seen every scam there was. Pattern recognition was my specialty. I could spot a lie in 3 questions. Could tell when someone was performing versus when they were being genuine. It was a skill. One I was proud of. One I thought would protect me anywhere. Turns out it doesn't work when you're lonely. My wife Linda died in March 2021. Breast cancer. We've been married 41 years. High school sweethearts. Married at 22. Had 2 kids by 26. She was my whole world. When she got diagnosed in 2018, I took early retirement to take care of her. 3 years of treatments, chemo, radiation, surgery, hospice. I watched her shrink from 140 pounds to 87. Watched her forget my name some days from the morphine. Watched her die in our bedroom on a Tuesday morning while I held her hand. After she passed, I didn't know what to do with myself. Our house in Sacramento felt huge and empty. Our kids were grown. My daughter Sarah lived in Portland with her family. My son Michael was in Denver. They'd visit once a month, but they had their own lives, their own problems. I didn't want to be the sad widower dad they had to manage. So I sat in that empty house for a year. Watched TV, went to the gym, had dinner with a few old work buddies once a month. Played golf on Sundays. Came home to silence. I wasn't suicidal, wasn't depressed exactly. Just existing, going through motions, waiting for something I couldn't name. My buddy Chuck had been going to Colombia every winter for 5 years. He kept telling me about Cartagena, colonial city, Caribbean coast, warm, cheap, beautiful. He said it'd be good for me. Get out of Sacramento, see something different, maybe meet someone. I told him I wasn't ready to meet anyone. He said I didn't have to be ready, just had to be somewhere that wasn't my living room. So I booked 3 weeks in Cartagena for February 2022, 1 year after Linda died. Rented a small apartment in Gethsemane through Airbnb, 1.5 million pesos a month, about $370, walking distance to the old city. I figured I'd walk around, eat some food, sit on the beach, come home. Nothing dramatic. First week I just wandered. The old city was beautiful. Colourful colonial buildings, narrow streets, plazas with street vendors, music everywhere. It was alive in a way Sacramento wasn't. I'd get breakfast at a cafe, walk for hours, have lunch somewhere, walk more, dinner alone, back to the apartment, read, sleep, repeat. Second week I found a restaurant I liked. Small place in the old city called La Vitrola. Cuban food. Live music some nights. Good mojitos. I started going there every evening around 6 p.m. Sit at the same table near the window. Order the ropa vieja. Drink 1 mojito. Watch people walk by. It became my routine. That's where I met Natalie. She was my server the 3rd time I came in. Maybe late 30s. Pretty but not in an obvious way. Dark hair pulled back. Simple black dress. No heavy makeup. Professional. She spoke decent English. Asked where I was from. I said Sacramento. She said she'd never been to the United States. Asked what brought me to Cartagena. I said I was retired. Needed a change of scenery. She said Cartagena was good for that. A lot of people come here to start over. I kept coming back. Every evening, same table, same order. After about a week, she'd see me walk in and start making my mojito before I sat down. She'd bring it over with a smile. We'd talk for a few minutes between her other tables, where I'd been that day, what I'd seen. She told me about good beaches to visit, restaurants to try, places tourists didn't know about. I asked her one night if she'd like to get coffee sometime when she wasn't working. She said yes. Wrote her number on my receipt. We met 2 days later at a cafe in Gethsemane Talked for 3 hours. About her life. About mine. She'd grown up in Cartagena, been working in restaurants since she was 19, had a 12-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son who lived with her mother in a neighbourhood south of the city. Their father wasn't involved. Hadn't been for years. She was doing it alone, working 6 days a week to send money to her mum for the kids. I told her about Linda, about the cancer, about the year I'd spent sitting in an empty house. She reached across the table and put her hand on mine. Said she was sorry. Said losing someone like that must be the hardest thing. I said it was. She said I was brave for leaving, for trying something new. I said I didn't feel brave, just lost. She said sometimes they're the same thing. My 3 weeks ended, but I didn't want to leave. So I didn't. I extended my Airbnb another month, started seeing Natalie regularly. Coffee twice a week. Dinner when she wasn't working. Walks along the old city walls at sunset. She never asked me for money. Never hinted. When we went out, I'd pay and she'd thank me, but not like she expected it. Like it was a nice gesture between equals. Month 2, she invited me to her mother's house to meet the kids. I was nervous. Meeting someone's family felt serious, but I went. The house was small. Concrete block. 3 rooms. Her mother, Carmen, was maybe 60. Warm. Welcoming. The kids were shy at first, but opened up after I asked about school. Her daughter, Sophia, asked if I really lived in California. Asked if I'd ever seen celebrities. I laughed. Said Sacramento wasn't Hollywood, but it was nice. Her son Mateo asked if I knew how to play soccer. I said not well, but I'd try. We ate sancocho that Carmen had made. Sat around a plastic table in the living room. Everyone talking at once. Laughing. It felt like family. Something I hadn't felt since Linda died. When we left, Carmen hugged me. Said in broken English that Natalie seemed happy. That I was welcome any time. I extended my stay again. 2 more months. By month 4, I wasn't calling it a trip anymore. I was living in Cartagena. I'd fly back to Sacramento every few months to see the kids. Check on the house, pay bills, then come right back. Natalie and I were serious by then. She'd stay at my apartment some nights. I'd meet her after work. We'd have dinner, walk, talk. She told me about her ex, how he'd left when Mateo was a baby, how she'd raised both kids working doubles at restaurants, how she'd never had help, never had someone she could count on. She said I was different, said I made her feel safe, like maybe she didn't have to do everything alone anymore. Month 5, I was back in Sacramento visiting Sarah when she asked me point blank if I was moving to Colombia. I said I didn't know. Maybe. She said, "Dad, are you sure about this woman? You've known her 5 months." I said I knew your mother 3 months before I proposed. She said that was different. You were 22. You're 67 now. I said I'm aware of my age. She dropped it. But I could tell she was worried. Month 6, I was back in Cartagena. Natalie and I were having dinner at La Vitrola when she got a call. Her face changed. She stepped outside to take it. Came back 5 minutes later looking shaken. I asked what was wrong. She said her mother had fallen, broken her hip, needed surgery. I asked if Carmen had insurance. She said no. Most people here don't. I asked how much the surgery cost. She said 15 million pesos, about $3,700. She said she didn't have it. Would have to figure something out. I said I'd help. She said no, she couldn't ask me to do that. I said you're not asking, I'm offering. She cried, said she didn't know how to thank me. I said you don't need to thank me. Carmen's your mother. This is what people do for people they care about. I wired the money the next day. Carmen had the surgery that week. Natalie called me from the hospital crying, said I'd saved her mother's life, said she'd never forget this. I said it was nothing, just money. She said it wasn't nothing to her. That was the first time. Month 7, Sophia needed braces. 8 million pesos, about $2,000. Natalie was embarrassed to tell me. Said she'd been saving but wasn't there yet. I said, don't worry about it. I'd handle it. She said she'd pay me back. I said there's no need. She cried again. Said I was too good to her. Month 8, the roof on Carmen's house started leaking. Rainy season, water coming in. 12 million pesos to fix it. About $3,000. Natalie showed me photos. The ceiling was sagging. Mould growing. I said, of course we'll fix it. She said, we. I said, we're in this together, aren't we? She kissed me. Said she loved me. First time either of us had said it. Month 9, Mateo got sick. Kidney infection. Needed to stay in the hospital for a week. The hospital bill was 18 million pesos, about $4,500. Insurance would have covered most of it, but they didn't have insurance. Natalie was panicking. I said I'd take care of it. She said she couldn't keep taking money from me. I said it's not taking. It's family. We're family now. I wasn't keeping a running total. Wasn't thinking about it that way. I had the money. Linda and I had saved well. Between my pension and our investments, I was pulling in about $6,000 a month. I owned the house in Sacramento outright. I had $340,000 in savings. Helping Natalie's family with emergencies wasn't going to break me. And they were real emergencies. I saw the hospital bills, the repair estimates, the orthodontist invoices. This wasn't a scam. This was life. Month 10, Natalie said her sister in Barranquilla was having money problems. Husband had left. 3 kids to feed. She asked if I could lend her sister 10 million pesos, about $2,500, just until she got on her feet. I said, of course. Wired it that day. Never saw it again, but I didn't ask about it. Month 11, Carmen needed medication for her hip. Ongoing physical therapy. Another 6 million pesos, about $1,500. Natalie said she'd cover it from her tips. I said, don't be ridiculous. I paid it. Month 12, Mateo's school fees were due. 5 million pesos, about $1,200. Sophia needed new clothes. Growing fast. Another 2 million pesos, about $500. Natalie's phone broke. Needed a new one for work. 3 million pesos, about $750. It became a pattern. Every month, something. Sometimes 2 things. Always legitimate. Always urgent. Hospital bills, school fees, repairs, emergencies. I'd ask how much. She'd tell me I'd wire it. She'd thank me. Say she'd pay me back someday. I'd say forget about it. By month 14, I'd sent about $90,000. But I didn't think of it that way. It wasn't one number. It was Carmen's surgery, Sophia's braces, Mateo's hospital stay, the roof, the school, the medicine. All separate. All necessary. My kids knew I was helping Natalie financially, but not how much. Sarah would ask occasionally how things were going. I'd say fine. She'd ask if Natalie was working. I'd say yes. At the restaurant. Sarah would pause, then say, okay, Dad, just be careful. I'd say I know what I'm doing. I investigated fraud for 32 years. I can spot a con. This isn't that. Famous last words. Month 15, Natalie said her mum's house needed a new bathroom. The old one was falling apart. Mould, broken tiles. Toilet didn't work half the time. She showed me photos. It was bad. She said it had cost 25 million pesos to redo it. About $6,200. I hesitated for the first time, not because I didn't have the money, but because it felt different, more permanent, like I was investing in a house I'd never live in. But I sent it anyway. Because what was I going to say? No, Carmen can keep using a broken toilet? I couldn't do that. Month 16, Natalie's sister in Barranquilla needed money again. Daughter was sick. Hospital bills. 8 million pesos, about $2,000. Then Mateo's school needed new uniforms and supplies. 3 million pesos, about $750. Then Carmen needed dental work. 2 teeth pulled. Dentures. 7 million pesos, about $1,750. I started to feel it then. Not financially. I still had money, but emotionally. Like I was being pulled in too many directions. Like I'd become the solution to every problem. I tried to talk to Natalie about it. Asked if maybe her family could handle some of these expenses themselves. She got quiet. Then she said, I thought you cared about them. I said, I do. She said, then why does helping feel like a burden? I said, it doesn't. I'm just saying maybe we should be more careful. She said, careful with what? With helping my mother? With making sure my kids have what they need? I backed down. Said, forget it. You're right. Month 17, I flew back to Sacramento. My son Michael was getting married. I was gone for 2 weeks. While I was there, Sarah sat me down, said we need to talk about Natalie. I said, what about her? She said, how much money have you given her? I said, I haven't given her money. I've helped with family emergencies. She said, Dad, how much? I said, I don't know exactly. She said, guess. I said, maybe 90,000. She went pale. Said, Dad, that's more than my house down payment. Are you serious? I said, it's spread over 17 months. It's not like I handed her a check for $90,000. She said it might as well be. Dad, do you really think all of those emergencies are real? I said, I've seen the bills. She said, bills can be faked. You know that. You investigated fraud. I said, this is different. She said, how? I said, because I know her. Sarah shook her head, said, I hope you're right. I flew back to Cartagena feeling uneasy. For the first time since I'd met Natalie, I felt doubt. Not about her, about me. About whether I was being smart or just being lonely. Month 18, June 2023. I'd been with Natalie for a year and a half. I was sitting in my apartment one afternoon when I decided to add it all up. Really add it up. I got out my laptop, opened my banking app, started going through wire transfers, plus dozens of smaller things. 500 here, 1,000 there, groceries, utilities, transportation, medicine. Total, $127,000. $127,000 in 18 months. I stared at the number. My stomach dropped. That was more than a third of my savings. Gone. In a year and a half. To a woman I'd met in a restaurant who'd never once asked me for money, but somehow I'd sent her over $100,000 anyway. I sat there for an hour, trying to process it. Trying to figure out if I'd been scammed or if this was just what helping someone looked like. Trying to decide if I was angry or just shocked. I didn't know. I couldn't tell anymore. That night I met Natalie for dinner. At La Vitrola, our place. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a table near the back. She smiled when she saw me, got up to kiss me. I kissed her back, but something felt off. I couldn't shake the number. $127,000. We ordered, talked about our days. She told me about work. I told her about a walk I'd taken. Normal conversation. But my mind was somewhere else. I kept thinking about the money, about Sarah's warning, about whether I'd been played. I decided to test something. I said, Natalie, can I ask you something? She said, of course. I said, how's your sister doing? In Barranquilla? She looked confused. Said she's fine. Why? I said, just wondering. You sent her money twice. Thought maybe things got better. She said, oh yes, much better. Thank you again for that. I said, what was the second time for? Her daughter's hospital bill, right? She said yes. Poor girl was so sick. I nodded. Said that's good, she's okay now. Here's the thing. Natalie didn't have a sister in Barranquilla. She had a sister in Cartagena named Patricia. I knew that. I'd met Patricia twice. But when I'd asked about the second round of money for Barranquilla, she'd gone along with it. Hadn't corrected me. Hadn't said there is no sister in Barranquilla. Just said yes, much better, thank you again. My fraud investigator brain kicked in. That's a tell. When someone agrees with a false premise without correcting it, it means they're not tracking their own story. They're saying yes to keep you happy, not because it's true. I felt sick, but I didn't say anything. Not then. I needed to think, needed to figure out if I was being paranoid or if my gut was right. We finished dinner, walked back to my apartment. She stayed over. In the morning, she left for work. I sat on the couch with my laptop and started looking. I pulled up her Facebook. I'd seen it before, but never looked closely. She didn't post much. Photos of the kids, photos of work, nothing suspicious, but I started going back, way back, to posts from before we met. That's when I saw it. A photo from January 2022, 1 month before I'd met her. A photo of her with a man, Colombian, maybe 40. His arm around her, her head on his shoulder, both smiling. The caption in Spanish, 5 años juntos, te amo mi vida. 5 years together, I love you my life. Posted January 10th, 2022. 1 month before we'd met at La Vitrola. I scrolled more. There were more photos going back years. Her and this man, at the beach, at restaurants, at someone's birthday party, at Christmas, with her kids, with Carmen, all together, all as a family. The most recent photo was from March 2023, 3 months ago. Same man, at a barbecue, Natalie in the background, smiling, holding a beer, like nothing had changed. I sat there staring at my laptop screen, feeling something cold settle in my chest. She had a boyfriend. The whole time, for 5 years, and I'd sent her $127,000 thinking I was the only one. Thinking I was building something with her. Thinking I was helping her family because we were family. I wasn't family. I was paying for their life while she was with him. I closed the laptop, sat there numb, didn't cry, didn't rage, just sat there feeling stupid, feeling like every skill I'd built over 32 years had meant nothing, because I'd been lonely, and loneliness makes you blind. I didn't confront her that day. I needed to see it myself, needed confirmation. So I waited. 3 days later, on a Saturday, I went to La Vitrola at 7 p.m, our usual time, but I sat at a different table, near the back, where I could see the door but wasn't obvious. At 7:30, Natalie walked in, but not through the front entrance, through the kitchen. She worked there, but she wasn't in her work clothes. She was wearing a blue dress I'd bought her 2 months ago. Her hair was down, makeup done. She looked beautiful, and she was holding hands with him, the man from Facebook. They walked to a table near the window. Our table, the one I always sat at. They sat down, ordered drinks, laughed. He put his hand on hers. She leaned in and kissed him. I watched them for 10 minutes. Watched her smile at him the way she used to smile at me. Watched her laugh at something he said. Watched her be comfortable. At home. With him. At our table. In our restaurant. Like I'd never existed. I stood up and walked out the back way. Didn't look at them, didn't make a scene. Just left. Back at my apartment, I sat on the couch and felt something break. Not my heart exactly. I'd already lost Linda. I knew what heartbreak felt like. This was different. This was humiliation. This was realizing I'd been a fool. That I'd funded someone else's relationship. Someone else's life. And convinced myself I was building something real. I booked a flight back to Sacramento for the next day. Didn't tell Natalie. Just packed my bags. Just left the apartment key on the counter. Blocked her number. Deleted her from Facebook. Left. On the plane, I opened my banking app one more time. Looked at the number. $127,000. Gone. In 18 months. To a woman who'd never asked for money, but somehow I'd given it anyway. Because she'd needed it. Because her family had needed it. Because I'd wanted to be needed. I spent 32 years investigating fraud, spotting lies, reading patterns. And I'd fallen for the oldest con there is. Not because the con was good, but because I'd wanted it to be real. My kids picked me up from the airport. They took one look at my face and knew. Sarah hugged me, said, "I'm sorry, Dad." I said, "Don't be. I'm the one who should have known better." Michael said, "How much?" I said, "Enough." He said, "Are you okay financially?" I said, "Yeah, I'll be fine. Just need to work a few more years before actually retiring." He said, "Dad, you're 67. I said, "I know. I'm back in Sacramento now. Been back 7 months. The house still feels empty. I still have dinner with my work buddies once a month. Still play golf on Sundays. Still come home to silence. But I don't think about Cartagena anymore. Don't think about Natalie. Don't think about the money. Well, that's a lie. I think about it every day. About how I could have been so blind. About how someone trained to spot deception got deceived. About how loneliness makes you see what you want to see instead of what's really there. Sarah asked me a few months ago if I'd ever date again. I said no. She said, "Dad, you can't let one bad experience stop you from living." I said it's not about the experience. It's about knowing I can't trust my own judgment anymore. If I couldn't see this coming, what else can't I see? I've got about $210,000 left in savings. My pension covers my bills. I'll be okay. Financially, I'll survive. But something else got taken that I can't get back. The belief that I was smart enough to protect myself. That my training mattered. That I could tell the difference between real and fake. Turns out I can't. Not when I don't want to. Natalie never reached out after I left. No text. No call. No apology. Just silence. Which tells me everything I need to know. I wasn't a person to her. I was a resource. And when the resource left, there was nothing else to say. I looked at her Facebook one last time about a month ago. Couldn't help myself. She's still with him. Posted a photo last week, them at the beach. Her laughing. Him holding her. Both looking happy. The caption, 6 años y contando. Mi amor. 6 years and counting. My love. 6 years. Which means they were together the entire time I knew her. The entire 18 months. While I was sending money for Carmen's surgery. For Sophia's braces. For Mateo's hospital stay. For the bathroom. For the sister who might not even exist. All of it. He was there, living the life I was paying for. I closed Facebook after that. Haven't looked since. What's the point? It's over. I lost. She won. That's how it goes sometimes. People ask me if I regret going to Cartagena. I don't know how to answer that. I regret the money. I regret the time. I regret believing something that wasn't real. But I don't regret leaving Sacramento. I don't regret trying. I just regret being wrong about who I was trying with. I'm 67 years old. I've got my pension. I've got my house. I've got my kids. That's more than a lot of people have. But I also know I'll spend the rest of my life alone. Because I can't trust myself to choose right. And if I can't trust myself, I sure as hell can't trust anyone else. That's my story. $127,000 for 18 months of believing something that was never true. I hope telling this prevents someone else from losing what I lost. Not just the money, the belief that you're smarter than this, because nobody is, not when they're lonely enough. Walter went to Cartagena a year after his wife died. Met Natalie. Never asked for money for 6 months. 18 months later, $127,000 later, he found her Facebook. 5 years with another man. The whole time. Walter investigated fraud for 3 decades. Spotted every pattern. Every lie except the one he didn't want to see. This is my Expat Stories. Back soon with another.